Hi everyone, wear Anthony's shirt, Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Glass Animals record, How to Be a Human Being. UK pop band Glass Animals, they are back with their sophomore full-length LP. Reminds me a bit of similarly funky and artsy rock and pop outfits from the UK, such as Alt J or Wild Beasts. I think Glass Animals sounded even more similar to these groups on their previous record, Zaba. But on their sophomore effort over here, the band seems to be doing a better job of defining themselves a little bit more, namely with all of this really funky and foreign percussion, lots of hand drums. Also, I think the production in general is a bit better, more vibrant, more instrumentally dense. And there's some amazing grooves on this thing. I mean, some of the instrumentals on this thing are absolutely killer. Cannot help but want to dance to this thing. Man. Some of these beats are just so far outside the spectrum of Western music that it'll have the cultural appropriation police banging down your door just for playing this thing too loud. Especially on the song Life Itself, which is the opener to this project. Great performance, lots of energy coming through on the track, and even though the instrumentation and the beats seem super upbeat, there's some very dark vocal melodies woven into this track that keep the mood just a little sour. The band can play it kind of ominous but feel good at the same time. Although I do wish the vocals on this cut, and really the rest of the cuts on the record, had a little bit more personality to them, a bit more character, a bit more of something that would allow me to pick these vocals out of a lineup. They seem to sing in this really effeminate vibrato that reminds me again of those groups like Wild Beasts and Alt J, but doesn't seem to contain the quirks that actually makes me remember the vocals from those bands. So unfortunately, Glass Animals don't really come through with the personality of the contemporaries that they seem to have a lot in common with. If it wasn't for the fact that the instrumentals and sometimes the songwriting on this thing were so good that I couldn't deny it, I would just call this record a carbon copy or just boring. But the fact of the matter is I love the song Season 2, Episode 3, which is this very subtle and quiet ballad. The band has a knack for writing these very tiny and emotional songs that pull at the heartstrings really well and actually have a lot of interesting, quirky bits of instrumental worked in. Even though the track is low-key, there might be some interesting chord progressions or glitchy effects worked into the track. I also dig the song Mama's Gun as well. The vocal harmonies on this thing, the plucked strings are all incredibly well layered and assembled. For a pop record, this thing is super duper refined, but not so refined that it can't have fun. I also like the very hypnotic and eerie vocals on the cut Cane Sugar. Those are a highlight too, and the instrumental with its rattling hi-hats, it's a little trap flavored. Now it's the more animated tracks, surprisingly, that I find to be more of a letdown on this record. Tracks that are more energetic, they're dancier, but I feel like they don't take that vibe far enough. Like, the band has really got a groove going, but the instrumental and the performance seems a little too reserved and a little too reeled in order to really kind of get me excited, get me jumping off the walls. The music on this record that is more upbeat sounds more like the soundtrack to spending an evening in a Brooklyn bar where the beer is overpriced and it's loaded with women who you would never want to date ever, like social media gurus for Gawker or BuzzFeed writers. And then there's the song Pork Soda. Unfortunately, not a Primus cover, but the track does feature some of the most horrendous lyrics on the entire record. Many of the lyrics, though, do seem to reflect on the band's recent experiences since the blow-up of their last record, and also some light commentary on the mind of millennials, or just millennial life in general. And while some of the lines that the band offers here and there are kind of interesting, I wouldn't say across the length of the record they come to any great truth or observation or make any statements that are really going to kind of make people look at millennial woes in a different way. The album features a short interlude in the middle of the track listing, and then after that, the second half of the album just fails to bring back the magic that the first half had, at least on some of the tracks. The song Take a Slice, I appreciate how dynamic the track is, but I feel like the payoff, these quiet and tension-building verses is followed with, isn't really that exciting. It's actually at this point in the track where I feel like Glass Animals maybe unintentionally do a bit of a rip-off of Nine Inch Nails' Closer. It's like they tried to recreate Closer, but not so close that they would actually get sued. And there's something about the opening guitar lines on the song Popular Street that remind me a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers, namely the song Under the Bridge, but the band, I guess, comes to a little bit of a different conclusion on the chorus, even though the verses do sound eerily similar in a way. And then we have the song Agnes, where it feels like the band is really overstepping and trying to force this really upbeat, happy, glitzy, sunny vibe that sounds like a quaint summer night spent with friends, all of whose parents make $100,000 salary a year at least, and you're all just hanging out in your classic cars under the star, looking at fireflies. You don't have a care in the world because you don't have a care in the world. Other people are suffering, jackass. It's the kind of music that I feel like would be set well to like those Just Girly Things Tumblr images, but I digress a little bit. Having said all that, I think this is a decent pop record. You know, you could certainly do worse by pop standards. And while I think the band really could be saying more interesting things lyrically, or at least connecting these things in a more significant way, and they could be delivering some better and more interesting vocals, there are some decent ballads and songs on this thing. The production is really tight and colorful and well put together without actually kind of sucking away the energy from the mix. It's not too clean, it's not too pristine, it's not sanitized or anything like that. Some of the performances, some of the grooves on these tracks are great, catchy as hell. Sometimes the band comes off eccentric and a little on the fringe, but it's only when the songs are so quiet that they can't possibly be catchy or punchy or instantaneous. It's the louder tracks on here that I find to be the blandest. It's kind of like a weird paradox, you know, when the band is quiet, they seem a little unique. When they're loud, it's like their personality traits just vaporize a little bit. I see the potential for Glass Animals to come through and make a much better record in the future, but for right now, I'm just mildly enjoying what they're offering me over here. I'm feeling a decent to strong 6 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry if you happen to disagree with my thoughts on this record. Thanks for watching. Forever.